What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Sucker Free Sports Talk, your Chicago sports talk show for everything Bulls, Bears, and more. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Patrick Williams' resurgence and the Bulls' up and down play of late. I'll give you my top 10 NBA players in the game right now. We'll talk about Illini football and their continued dominance over the Big Ten West. And we're going to talk about the Bears officially entering rebuild mode. But before we get into that, we got to talk about their blowout loss last Sunday to the Dallas Cowboys. Bears offense continues to show massive improvement. Justin Fields looks good, and that Bears running game continues to dominate. Third straight game with over 200 yards. That's really impressive. They're leading the NFL right now with 188 yards per game. Justin Fields continues to be a massive threat running the ball. He's averaging 53 yards rushing a game. Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery continue to be a 1-2 punch. Khalil Herbert especially, he had 99 yards last game. These guys continue to impress on the run. Fields also showed improvement passing the ball. Really good to see from Justin. Second game in a row where he's really proved himself to be improving and to be a good NFL passer. He went 17 of 23, 151 yards, 2 TDs, and no interceptions. That's the best thing, no interceptions. He was pretty accurate throughout the game. He had some good deep balls. There was that drop by Velus Jones. Some people want to call it a drop. I thought it was actually a tough catch. He would have had to dive out pretty far to catch that ball. But regardless, Justin Fields has been more accurate the last 2 games. Last 3 games, really, besides that Washington game. He missed those throws in the end zone. But overall, really good. He had those 2 touchdowns. The one to N'Keal Harry was good. Really good to see N'Keal get going. And then Cole Kmet, he finally gets a touchdown. I think it's been since 2020 the last time he's had a touchdown. That was good to see. And then I think Luke Getsy. Overall, I think Luke Getsy has had a really good last 3 weeks after some of the criticism he was getting. From me as well, he was been getting criticism from the national media, from the Chicago media. And I think he's learned from some of those mistakes. He's starting to get Justin Fields on some design runs more. They're starting to use the fullback more in the red zone. They're putting the extra offensive lineman in there, running the ball, doing what they do best. I really like what Luke Getsy has shown. I like his improvement. And Matt Eberflus has been involved in that offense too, making sure that they're running the right thing in the goal line. So that's good to see from Luke Getsy. I think overall the offense has been really good, especially the last 2 weeks. Really good to see. But with that being said, the defense has been awful, especially last week against the Cowboys. Really disappointing. This D-line is one of the worst D-lines in the NFL. I've been saying it all year. There's an inept of talent. Angelo Blackson, some of these other guys. I like what Watts is doing, but he just doesn't have the talent to get it done every play in and play out. D-line is really bad. Those Cowboys picked apart the Bears' secondary in that first half, especially Kendall Vildor. Dak Prescott absolutely tore him apart. Slants, stops, they're just getting whatever they could against the Bears. They put up like 28 points in that first half. First 4 drives were all touchdowns. Really disappointed to see, and it's frustrating because now you finally see the Bears' offense get going. You see the run game, and the defense just completely falls apart. Defense was doing pretty good in this first few games of the season, and now after some of these trades, it's just kind of falling apart. So the Bears lose. I predicted a Bears win, but that didn't happen. The Bears ended up losing. It was kind of a blowout there. And after that loss, the Bears officially enter rebuild mode. You saw it last week. The Bears traded Robert Quinn to the Philadelphia Eagles for a 4th-round pick. And then to follow that up, they traded Roquan Smith to the Baltimore Ravens for the Baltimore's second-round pick and a 5th-round pick. Bears also get linebacker A.J. Klein in that deal. But I think the Bears saw the writing on the wall here. They weren't going to be able to re-sign these guys in the offseason. Roquan wanted too much. He thought he should have been the highest paid linebacker in the NFL. Ryan Poles, knew he wasn't going to end up paying him. So the Bears move on from him. A lot of people don't understand this, but if the Bears just didn't sign him in free agency in the offseason, they would have got a 3rd-round pick anyways. But regardless, I'm not too upset with this move. Bears had to get what they could while they could for these guys. Roquan was a good player for the Bears. I like Roquan. He was a 9th overall pick for the Bears, middle linebacker. We all know about the history of middle linebacker for the Chicago Bears from Urlacher, Butkus, Singletary. And Roquan was kind of that next guy up, it seemed like. A dominant NFL player, dominant middle linebacker in the NFL. But the position isn't that important anymore in the NFL. Guys aren't putting a lot of money into that position. Roquan kind of represented himself in the offseason, trying to get as much money as he could. And I think that was a mistake Roquan made. If he was trying to get a new deal with the Bears, he didn't really play his cards right. He represented himself. He didn't have an agent. And when you put yourself in that position, you're going to take things personal. It's strictly business, and Roquan took it personal.
It's strictly business.
He didn't get as much money as he thought he should. He thought he was underpaid, and now look what happens. You get traded to the Baltimore Ravens. Now he'll be on a competing team over there. I like what the Ravens are doing. But with that being said, I think Roquan wanted to stay in Chicago. I think he wanted to work things out in Chicago. But unfortunately, he didn't get that agent. He represented himself, and things didn't work out. The Bears followed that up by trading their second-round pick, not the one they got from the Ravens, but their second-round pick, which is going to be a higher pick than the Ravens one. They ended up trading that pick to the Pittsburgh Steelers for wide receiver Chase Claypool. A lot of people are excited about this move. This move shows that the Bears are all in on Justin Fields. They want to give him a wide receiver 1 going forward, a potential wide receiver 1. Claypool's played good for Pittsburgh, especially this year. He's had a couple of really good games. I like what this guy does. I liked him coming out of Notre Dame. He's a big-body guy, 6'4", 230 pounds, good with the run after the catch, good with jump balls. They want to see what Fields can do with some competent weapons here going forward. We've seen the offense get going with this run game. Now we add another receiver in here with Darnell Mooney. I like what N'Keal Harry's doing. So now you got some competent wide receivers in here. They want to see what Fields does going forward to make sure that he is the right guy. Now, if Fields struggles the rest of the year, the Bears still have that option to go ahead and draft a quarterback. But this does show they're building some confidence in Justin. They like what he's done in the last 2 weeks. And they're going to give him another weapon here. They gave up a second-round pick. Claypool was a second-round pick. You know, you often don't get what you put in for some of these guys. And Steelers end up getting a second-round pick for him. So I think it was kind of a win-win for both teams here. We'll see what happens. I like Claypool, and we'll see what happens going forward. The Bears now have several draft picks going forward into next season. 2023, they have 8 total draft picks. They have 1 first-rounder, 1 second-round pick from the Ravens, 1 third-round pick, 2 fourth-round picks, 2 fifth-round picks, and a 7th-round pick. So they got a lot of draft capital. Ryan Poles talked about this. He wanted to build through the draft instead of free agency. They have a lot of picks. I think they're going to have to put a lot of these picks towards defense now. They've built some offense. They've built some credibility in the offense the last couple weeks, but now the defense is depleted. You're going to need D linemen. You're going to need linebackers. You're going to need edge defenders. Bears have not gotten a lot of sacks this year. You do have Gibson and Robinson, but those guys just aren't getting it done right now. Against the Cowboys last week, I don't think they had any sacks. They're not generating any pressure. So in the draft, you're going to have to find some guys. There are some good defensive linemen in this draft. The Bears also have $127 million in cap space next year. That is the most cap space in the NFL. However, if you look at some of these guys in free agency next year, not a whole lot of young talent. There are some older guys like J.J. Watt, Fletcher Cox. Robert Quinn will be a free agent again. The guy they picked up last year who failed his physical, the Jedi, he'll be available again, but not a lot of guys. A lot of older guys on defense and free agency. There will be some good running backs, some good quarterbacks, a couple good receivers, but like I said, Bears don't really need that right now. They need some defensive guys, so they're going to have to pick up some guys in the draft and hit on some guys. And then the rest of the season is going to be a struggle defensively. Like I said, it's unfortunate because now you finally see the offense get going, and now the defense is shit. They completely took a shit last week. Matt Eberflus and Alan Williams, the defensive coordinator, are going to have to draw up some schemes here to try to get some stops. We'll see what happens. They take on the Miami Dolphins, and Mike McDaniel, the head coach, is a really good offensive coach. He's going to look to pick apart the Bears just like the Cowboys did. We'll see what happens there. Like I said, Bears are going to have to find a way to get some stops defensively if they want to compete going forward. And like I always say, No matter who they trade, you always play to win the game. As Herm Edwards says, you play to win the game.
You play to win the game.
All right, that's the Bears. Now let's get into some Bulls talk.
This is a sucker-free sports talk production. Bulls Talk.
After dropping 2 close games to the Spurs and 76ers, the Bulls bounced back and beat the Brooklyn Nets and a depleted Charlotte Hornets team. Kind of been what we've seen all year. It's been up and down play with the Bulls. But one thing to look at here, one positive to look at is Patrick Williams, the Paw, has shown massive improvement here these last few games. Last 5 games, he's averaging 11.4 points. That's up from 5.4, which he was averaging for the first 4 games. Really good to see from Pat. He's been much more assertive here. He's been much more aggressive. Still isn't getting a lot of shots up, but he's been really efficient. He's getting more dunks. The last game against Charlotte, he had like 3 or 4 dunks. Really good to see from Pat Williams. His jump shot is really good. Really underrated jump shot. He's on balance, really good form. He's picked up some of that slack from DeMar DeRozan. DeMar's been struggling the last few games, and Pat's picked up some of that slack. Really good to see from Pat. This is what we've been waiting for. Like I always say with Patrick, he has the talent, he has the ability, he has the body. It's just that aggressiveness that he lacks. And something came out of him these last few games. It had to come from within. That's what Billy Donovan said. He says, I show him the tape all the time, but ultimately it comes from within. And Pat Williams has put that aggression on the court and showed a lot these last few games. In Wednesday night's game, this last game, Levine, DeRozan, and Vucevic all struggled mightily. They missed a lot of shots. They were not shooting good from the field, so the role guys had to step up. Like I said, Pat Williams stepped up. Other guys, airplane mode, Derek Jones Jr. I love this guy. I didn't see him in the lineup at the start of the season, but with some of the other guys struggling, Billy Donovan has inserted airplane mode. Looked really good the other night, had 10 points, hit a couple threes. He plays good defensively. He's an undersized forward, but at the same time, the athleticism he plays with is good enough to compete with some of these bigger guys. Really good to see from airplane mode. Javonte Green, this is what I've been waiting to see from Savage Woo. 17 points off the bench, controlled the game defensively, his energy, the dunks. I think he was 3 for 3 from 3. Really good to see from Javonte. And then the other guy, Goran Dragic, I've talked about this guy all year. He continues to be a magician with the ball. I did not expect this from Goran coming into the season. I thought he would be a 10 to 15 minute a game guy. And he's just shown to be one of the best Bulls players off the bench. I mean, what he can do with the ball, passing, been a really good jump shooter, just an overall really good basketball player, and a really good pickup from the Bulls to pick up Goran Dragic. And then the Bulls have been having to play smaller of late with Andre Drummond. He's been out with a left shoulder sprain. Hopefully he isn't out for too long because you kind of been seeing that second unit get killed on the boards. They're playing undersized. It's been going pretty good for them, but at the same time, you want to get Andre back. He's our best big man off the bench. Kobe White has been out as well. You know, I know Billy likes Kobe White, but at the same time, I don't think he deserves to be in this lineup. You saw it in those games against the Spurs. He had a decent game against the Spurs, and then he comes back in that game against the 76ers and he had like 5 or 6 turnovers. Didn't know what he was doing out there. I think this guy doesn't belong in the rotation. We'll see what happens when he comes back. My gut tells me Billy Donovan will insert him back into the rotation. One of the concerning things with the Bulls for me is their inconsistent energy. The Bulls do not play with a sense of urgency out there. Guys like Vucevic, after a strong start for Vucevic, what I was clamoring for him to get in the post, he's kind of reverted back to his old tendencies of shooting too many threes, too many jump shots, not shooting good from the field. Vucevic has to get stronger. He has to realize he's most effective on that block and play inside out. And then it's the overall team's lack of urgency. You'll see them get a lead. You'll see them get a 7 or 8 point lead, and then they kind of take their foot off the pedal. You got to put the nail in the coffin. When you get a lead in this league, nothing is safe. You have to put the nail in the coffin. You have to play with a sense of urgency. You have to finish games, and the Bulls just aren't doing that right now. Against some of these better teams, you're not going to win games. If you don't play 48 minutes with a sense of urgency, that's what it takes to win games in the NBA. Defensively, they just look lackluster at times. They don't communicate. They switch too much. They don't close out under control. They get beat off the dribble. They're going to have to figure this out here. I know Billy Donovan's frustrated with it too, and it's frustrating to the fans to see because all the talent is there. You look at this roster, and especially this bench unit, like 10, 11 players deep. They are really deep and really talented, but they just lose focus at times. Some of these guys, some of these veterans are going to have to get these guys together and understand that you have to close out games and you have to be more consistent with your energy. And then the Bulls are entering a tough stretch here. I looked at some of these Bulls games coming up. The next 15 games, they're all pretty tough games. Yeah, you have games against guys like the Utah Jazz and the Orlando Magic, but like I said in one of my earlier episodes, nothing is a given this year in the NBA. Especially in the Eastern Conference, every team is good. Even the Orlando Magic, who don't have a good record right now, they're a deep team with some good, talented players. Utah, like I said, they're playing above what people thought they would. Lauri Markkanen, they're playing really good. The next few games for the Bulls, they got the Celtics in Boston. They got back-to-backs against the Raptors, who are playing good. They got the Pelicans, and they got the Nuggets. So these are all good teams. Bulls are going to have to win some of these games against better teams if they want to compete in the Eastern Conference. If they want to get up there in the Eastern Conference standing, they got to win some of these games. All right, well, that's Bulls talk. Let's get into my top 10 players in the NBA in today's game. This is going to be a little controversial. I know a lot of guys are going to disagree with me on some of these. But with that being said, at number 10, I'm going with Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum of the Boston Celtics. He's a young athlete. He's the best player on that team, and that team has gone deep into the playoffs the last few years, and he's proven to be a performer in the playoffs. So at number 10, I'm going with Jason Tatum. At number 9, a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this. This is controversial, but at number 9, I'm going with LeBron James, King James. Although his numbers are pretty much the same for the last, 10, 11 years or so, you can kind of see it. He's fallen off a little bit. His field goal percentage isn't as good, especially this year. He's shooting too many threes. And at the end of the day, the reason I put him at 9 is he doesn't do anything defensively anymore. He's pretty much a stick figure defensively, shows no effort. He's good on the offensive side of the ball, but if you're not going to show any effort defensively, you're getting stuck at number 9 on my list. At number 8, I'm going with Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi, he's been injured the last few years, but the last time you saw Kawhi fully healthy was with the Toronto Raptors, and he single-handedly won that franchise a championship. I love Kawhi Leonard, his ball handling, his defense, plays both sides of the floor. I like Kawhi Leonard at number 8. At number 7, Ja Morant. Like I said in the earlier episode, this guy is Derrick Rose reborn. He's undoubtedly the best athlete in the NBA. Best player on that Memphis team, a team that I think would have went to the championship last year if he did not get hurt. I love Ja Morant and what he does for that Memphis team. At number 6, I'm going with Zion Williamson. This is another controversial pick, but I love Zion. He's been hurt the last couple years as well, but when he's on the floor, he absolutely dominates. He's bigger, faster, stronger than everybody on the court, and he gets the job done. He puts up the numbers. His field goal percentage is the most impactful thing he does. He doesn't miss too many shots. I like Zion Williams at number 6. At number 5, I'm going with Luka. Luka Doncic, he's one of the most skilled players in the NBA. I mean, the most impressive thing with Luka is he doesn't have that athleticism. He doesn't play above the rim. He doesn't use his speed. He uses everything he does is with skill. He's the most skilled player in the NBA. His shooting, his ball handling, his passing, really impressive. I like Luka Doncic and what he does for Dallas. At number 4, I'm going with Joel Embiid. Joel is a dominant player, a dominant center, one of the most dominant big men in the league. He's one of these guys that can do everything as well. He's a unicorn. He can shoot. He can pass. He can play defense. The one thing that I think is holding Joel back is some of his playoff performances and the team not going very far in the playoffs. I think if Philadelphia can get over that hump, get up in those Eastern Conference standing, and win a couple series in the Eastern Conference, then I think Joel Embiid will move up on a lot of people's lists. At number 3, I'm going with the Joker, Nikola Jokic, for the Denver Nuggets. He is the most skilled big man in the league. His passing is unbelievable. I mean, you watch this guy, he's like a point guard passing, taking the ball up the court, shooting. the Dirk shots. He's won back-to-back MVPs. Nikola Jokic is my third best player in the NBA. At number 2, I'm going with Steph Curry. I love what Steph does. Best shooter in the league. Coming off that championship. He continues to dominate games with his shooting, overall skill, ball handling. Steph can do it all. I love Steph Curry. At number 1, I'm going with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis, the Greek freak. He is unbelievable. Last time we saw him in the finals, he dropped 50 points to close out those finals. That was the last time the Milwaukee Bucks have really had a healthy team. They were without Middleton and some other guys last year. This year he's averaging 33 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists. That is crazy. The Milwaukee Bucks are 7-0. I think it's undoubtedly the best player in the NBA is Giannis Antetokounmpo. So those are my top 10 players in the NBA. Some honorable mentions here. Kevin Durant, I know you'll be surprised I left him off my list, but if you look at him lately, he just looks lackluster. I think the age is kind of getting to him. He's not the defender he used to be, and that team just sucks. Another guy, Devin Booker, DeMar DeRozan, Karl Anthony Towns. Those are all honorable mentions that did not make my list. All right, so that's my top 10 players. Here's a little side note. Steve Nash got fired by the Brooklyn Nets. You saw that the other day, right before the Bulls game. Steve might have been a bad coach. He was a really good player in this league. But I think too often in this league, in other leagues, coaches are held accountable before players are. Coaching's a tough job, and I think that Steve Nash should have been good enough to get the job done here. A story that Jeff Van Gundy told me a long time ago when I was at a coaching clinic. He told me this story about Hubie Brown. Hubie Brown took over for the Memphis Grizzlies halfway through the season. And his first meeting with the players, he brought the players in, and they're all kind of jacking around, shooting up weird shots in practice and stuff. He brought them in and he told the guys, because you guys couldn't do your fucking job, a guy had to go home and tell his family he lost his job. And that story always kind of resonated with me. You see it in the NBA. Everybody talks about it's a players' league. And yeah, I agree with that. It is a players' league. But there's other guys involved here. There's fans. There's coaches. There's front office guys. And I think Steve got stuck in a tough situation here with a bunch of divas, a bunch of guys who thought they were too good. They forced themselves out of a lot of situations. When the going got tough, they did not get going. And unfortunately, Steve is the one who gets held accountable, and Steve Nash got fired by the Brooklyn Nets. All right, let's get into some shit that pisses me off.
I hate this fucking shit.
The mainstream media and their overreaction to the Michigan versus Michigan State fight in that tunnel. Now, it was bad. It was bad optics. I think those Michigan State players showed a lack of discipline. I think they were stupid for what they did. But at the same time, if you look at the videotape, the Michigan player, he was kind of showboating and he went and skipped through that tunnel before he was supposed to, before Michigan State cleared out of there. He probably went in there talking shit. And, a team just lost. It's a rivalry game. And the guy got beat up. There was a fight. Now, is that the end of the world? The media thinks so. Jim Harbaugh thinks so. They are asking for law enforcement to press charges against these guys. I mean, is that really necessary? Do we need to press charges against some young men who made a mistake and got into a fight? Yeah, the guy got touched up a little bit. Yeah, it was 10-on-1. But, these things kind of happen. If it happened on the field, nobody would even care. And now we're asking to press charges about these things. Two things men never do. Men don't cry and men don't press charges. I like Jim Harbaugh, but I think he's going a little too far here. He's a competitor, and I think he lets his competition get the best of him sometimes. Calling for law enforcement to get involved here is going way too far. There's no reason for that. These young men made a mistake. Suspend him for a couple games. Let the team discipline him. Let the school discipline him. No need to get the cops involved here.
I hate this fucking shit.
That is some shit that pisses me off. All right, let's talk about some Illinois football. The Fighting Illini take care of business in Lincoln, Nebraska against the Cornhuskers. The team started off slow there. Nebraska was putting up some points. And then in that second quarter, going into the second half, you saw the Illini take control of that game. Tommy DeVito continues to play lights out. I think he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in all of football, in all of college football. He's been playing really good, really accurate, really good game manager. I mean, all this guy does is go out there and win games. Defense, again, only ended up giving up 9 points. Still the top defense in the country. They got NFL players all over this defense. First team Big Ten guys all over this defense. Top scoring defense in the country. Really good to see from them. Illinois wins that game, and now they move on to play a depleted Michigan State team in Champaign. Like we talked about, Michigan State, they got a lot of guys out from suspensions from that fight. Illinois should take care of business here, but oftentimes you see in collegiate sports, once the team starts getting national media attention, they kind of lose that chip off their shoulder. They can get a little lackadaisical, so Illinois has to keep the pressure on here. They have to take this game serious. They have to go into Champaign this weekend and take this game against Michigan State. It isn't a Big Ten West game, but it is a Big Ten team, and it counts towards their overall Big Ten standings. So they'll play Michigan State this weekend, and then they'll move on to a big game next weekend against Purdue. A lot of people are saying that game is going to be the deciding factor in the Big Ten West. We'll see. We'll see how Purdue does this weekend. And then after that, they'll have a big game against the Michigan Wolverines. I'm sure Michigan will be heavy favorites in that game, regardless of what happens in the next 2 weeks. That'll be a big statement game for Illinois. Look for Illinois to go 2-0 in these next 2 weeks, and then go into that big game against Michigan. I was thinking about it here. If Illinois wants to make these college football playoffs, there's 6 teams in the college football playoffs now. They're going to have to win this Big Ten championship game. If they get to the Big Ten championship game, which I think they will, they're going to have to beat Ohio State or Michigan. That's their only way to get in there, and I think they are capable of doing that. With this defense, with Tommy DeVito, with this run game, I know they'll be heavy underdogs in those games, but I think Illinois could pull it off if they get there. So we'll see what happens with Illinois. Really been fun to watch all year. They're 7-1 overall. Really good to see from the Illini. All right, let's get into my picks of the week. I don't even know why I'm doing this shit anymore. Went 0-3 last week. I don't know what's going on here. Like I said, the NFL has been all over the place. These games, I don't know what's going on. I lost the Buccaneers game, the Jets game, the Bears game. But like I always say, the show must go on. So here we go with my first game. I have the Miami Dolphins -5 against the Bears in Chicago. I'm picking against the Bears here. I think that Miami Dolphins offense picks apart a depleted Bears defense. I don't think the Bears will have any answer from Mike McDaniel, Tua Tagovailoa, and that receiver group. They're going to pick apart the Bears. You got to watch out for that deep ball. But I like the Miami Dolphins here -5. My second game, I'm going with the Tennessee Titans. Titans are getting 12.5 points in Kansas City. I think that spread is too big. Titans have been playing good of late. Derrick Henry's gotten going. He had over 200 yards last week. I think this will actually be a close game. I like the Tennessee Titans +12.5. My third game, I'm going with the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta is getting 3.5 points. They actually won that game last week against the Carolina Panthers. A lot of people didn't think Atlanta would be good this year, but they've been better than what people thought, and I don't think the Chargers are that good. So that game will be in Atlanta. I like Atlanta +3.5. What else we got going on here in Chicago? We got the White Sox. The White Sox got a new manager, Pedro Grifol. A lot of high praise for this guy. I was listening to him on The Score. Sounds like a smart guy. He's a baseball lifer. He was the bench coach for the Kansas City Royals. A lot of high praise for this guy. A lot of guys like him. He's a bilingual guy. He can relate to these Spanish players. He's been a player in the AAA. He's been a manager for a long time, a bench coach. So I like what the White Sox did there with Pedro Grifol. A lot of fans were kind of looking for a bigger name. Some of them were clamoring for Ozzie Guillen to come back, but the White Sox end up going with a new manager here in Pedro Grifol. Chicago Blackhawks. Blackhawks have been playing better than what people thought. They're 4-4 with 2 overtime losses. Better than expected. You know, they were supposed to be one of the worst teams in that Western Conference. They've been better. Jonathan Tays, Patrick Kane have been playing pretty good. We'll see if the Blackhawks can find a trade partner or if they end up holding on to them for the rest of the year. And then you got the World Series this weekend. There'll actually be a better game tonight on Thursday. So either the Astros or Phillies will take a 3-2 lead. Then I think the next game is Saturday. So a lot of sports going on. This is the best time of the year to be a sports fan. A lot of games going on. College football, NFL, basketball, hockey, World Series baseball. So good time to be a sports fan. And with that, like always, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Let me know where I was right, where I was wrong, especially with those top 10 NBA players. And remember, if you're going to talk sports, always keep it sucker free.